It's not every day that you see a young 20-something CEO experiencing wild success in his tech company. Okay, you might see that in Silicon Valley or in the movies, but not so much in school transportation. That's why Keith Corso's story is so incredible, and he's just as inspiring as you might think. In fact, he brings so much energy and passion for safely moving students that it's absolutely infectious. So we're going to introduce you to him in just a moment, where he's going to share his story and the secret sauce behind it all. But first, let me thank the sponsor of the route, IC Bus. The next generation is here and is ahead of its class. Let's get rolling. Keith Corso founded BusRight when he was still in school. And now, honestly, not that much later, his business is thriving. In fact, it just surpassed a $30 million milestone in private funding. And the company is now in 36 states with nearly 1 million Parent App users. Keith is also one of our 2026 Trailblazer Award winners. It's a series that recognizes greatness in student transportation for folks under 40. So let's meet Keith now and hear how it all came together. I am now joined by Keith Corso, co-founder and CEO of BusRight. And Keith, you are one of our 2026 Trailblazers. Congrats again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for doing this and honoring folks in the industry here.
Yes, youngins like you. I can't say that because I'm old now, but your story is absolutely truly incredible. So I'm so glad to have you join us on the route and for people to hear your story in your own words. You have received a lot of recognition over the years in your kind of short amount of time in this business already, but a lot of it has been in the tech space where you really kind of started. But I think that Trailblazers is your first industry award. Is that right? And how did it feel to win this one?
I read School Bus Fleet cover to cover back in high school.
Love
I've
that.
followed it closely ever since because it always felt like a window into where the industry was headed. And being named a trailblazer, it is an honor to say the least. But seeing the story in print as well, thank you for sending that too, at my doorstep was pretty surreal, especially thinking back to the days when I used to track those issues into a drawer in my childhood bedroom. So thank you, Amanda and team.
Oh, I love that. That means so much to be a part of your journey. You're also one of our youngest ever winners. I think you're tied with one other person. But the accomplishments you have under your belt at such a young age is truly incredible. But so, okay, before we dig into your success, tell us, how did you get to this point? What's your origin story?
BusRight was founded with the belief that public education creates freedom. And growing up, my bus driver Joy was a huge source of stability and mentorship in my life. And when she retired, I noticed how an individual driver could be that single point of success or failure in a child's educational experience. And I watched as these substitute drivers and these new drivers would jump into a school bus, staring at paper route sheets. Kids like me were missing a ride to school, and trust in what is one of the most important and foundational institutions, K-12 education, starts to erode when parents can no longer plan their days in a way that they hope, whether it's going to work or whatnot, because they don't know how their kid is going to get to and from school. And it felt like there were just some simple gaps in the technological infrastructure that could make student transportation run much smoother. And across school districts and within classrooms at that time, there were Chromebooks that were being thrown at teachers and students, and there were maybe even tablets in the classroom. But you step on the bus, and the technology for that vehicle and for that driver hasn't really changed since the first bus hit the road over 100 years ago. And so I, kind of came at this industry from the perspective of people don't realize how significant and impactful the school bus is to the 20 million students that rely on it to access their education. And they think that a yellow school bus route takes the same exact route every single day. And in a world where there's a severe driver shortage, overwhelming parent demands around student safety in and out of the classroom, and surging route complexity, the driver of the future was not one that was just staring at a paper route sheet. They needed additional support. And so we
Mm-hmm.
built, a tablet to, help them in that vein, amongst other things. But I ended up on this journey in high school when I first started building BusRight, getting introduced to my now co-founder Phil. And Phil grew up in the Bronx in New York, in the poorest zip code in the US. And there was one school bus route that transported him to a school outside his community. And that access to education enabled him to go on and study at Cornell, Columbia, Seton Law School, and later become the chief information officer of Broward County Schools, the sixth largest school district in the country, before we started BusRight together. So one bus route created this freedom and opportunity that changed his life. And Phil and I owe almost everything to the education system that we had access to in the great state of New York, that also exists across the country, but is certainly at risk. So I'll wrap with that, and hopefully that gives you a little bit of context on why we bleed yellow. I'm sure much like you.
Yes, it does. And your story about Joy is just so heartwarming. And when we spoke the first time, you told me that you had written a poem about her, and we do have a copy of that. So maybe we'll flash that up on the screen. So I think it's adorable.
A little embarrassing. You even see in that photo the spelling errors and grammatical errors when I was in middle school and wrote that, but fine, embarrass me, that's okay.
Hey, even an editor right now, when I look back at my work as a teenager, I cringe.
That makes you feel better.
Good, good. But there's another story that I want you to recount, and that was there's sort of this pivotal moment where I think you had a light bulb about how the system needs to be better, and it was based on you following a school bus one day on your way home. Can you share that again?
Yeah, so I was driving home from high school. I was now a senior, and I was stuck directly behind this school bus that made these 4 consecutive stops, and not one student got off the bus at each stop. The driver pulls over, they open up the door, there's no one there, and they keep doing this. And I look at my rearview mirror, and there's what looks like miles of cars just lined up, mimicking the wasteful motion of that bus. And I thought, how can we again empower that driver, that sub-driver, that new driver, a veteran driver, the transportation director who's driving, with not only turn-by-turn navigation so they could focus on what they do best, building relationships with those kiddos on the bus, focusing on the road ahead of them, but how do we make routes more efficient? Reflecting what students actually need transportation services, and opening up transportation to students that didn't have access before, because we now can serve students that didn't, because we know those that don't use it, right? And small example, Poughkeepsie City Schools, we just helped them optimize a number of their routes, so now they can provide transportation to their middle school students for the first time ever.
Oh,
So
great.
there's a lot that you can do when you take a look at your existing system, optimize, and then open up opportunity as a result.
And so it sounds like, I mean, you're not just saying, here's some software that, you can use, have fun. You're really getting into the nitty-gritty with your clients and saying, let's help. Let's save you time, save you money.
Yeah, I mean, technology is just a means to an end. And as much as I love building / designing / deploying technology, it only exists to achieve a certain outcome. And in the case of our customers, that outcome looks like a number of different things. It looks like having your first family vacation in probably decades in the summer. It looks like being praised at a school board meeting because parents now have peace of mind with a parent bus tracking app because, the transportation leader decided to, take a plunge and advance the services they can provide. It means that parents in the community have trust in the entire school experience, not just in the classroom, but outside. It means a lot of things, right? So every feature that we build, we want to understand what is the overstory / what is the key outcome that our customers will be able to achieve as a result of this new, frontier technology or what have you.
Yeah. And, I think it's so cool that you had this passion. You had this idea and you ran with it and you found the means to make it happen. And, since then, BusRight has seen so much success. Was it just a month ago you announced a major funding milestone? How has the reception been to your product evolution and where you are now and how you're building the future of this industry is, how we do what we do?
More people are waking up to the fact that we spent $900 billion a year on K-12 education, and that whole investment sits on the back of transportation leaders, bus drivers, routers, transportation directors, etc., who make sure that kids can actually access that education. And in a world where there is, again, labor shortages, driver shortages, especially in our industry, and the issues that I mentioned before, heightened concerns around child safety in and around a school building, and routes becoming more complex because of individualized transportation needs, whether it's special education or split custody or otherwise. The way that we used to do things in the past doesn't work anymore. And there is a appetite for school districts, for amazing talent on the market, for investors to want to back the most foundational industries that help deliver on the American promise and the American dream. And that's, I think, partly what is this sort of tailwind that BusRight has kind of fits squarely into, that people have kind of reverted to over the last several years, I would say.
Yeah. Wow. You've been building this for pretty much your whole adult life so far. But how has this work changed you personally?
How has it changed me? I would say that there's a lot you learn about your motivations when you have to deliver on something every single day for years, and when a number of people and organizations rely on you to show up every single day without fail. And you learn what actually motivates you because you have to go in the depths of your soul and figure out, how am I going to get through this challenge, and how am I going to serve the partners that we have in 38 states and every parent that matters, close to 1 million of them, and all the drivers who might have an issue one morning or afternoon or have a desire or idea they want to implement in the platform. There's all these amazing perspectives, and to listen to them and to internalize them and to get through the challenges, you have to figure out what drives you. And so I would say one of the things that has really driven me is when you show up at a conference and you're talking, and there's two people that walk up to your booth. This was in Iowa last year. There's a woman and a man. Find out they're married. The guy's a transportation director, and his wife is crying because they had their first family vacation in about 2 decades because of BusRight the prior summer. And it's hard to put into words when people say, hey, they want to have an impact, they want to work for a mission-driven organization. To have an idea that ultimately results in that outcome, that experience for another human that you care about, is incredibly meaningful.
Yeah.
In a similar vein, one of our customers got a permanent tattoo of our logo on her leg. And I know that sounds kind of funny, but when you unpack that, people only do that if there's a real connection and a feeling and a life-changing experience that you're able to create as a result of said partnership or technology or what have you. So we always talk about BusRight, make them talk about you at dinner tonight. And the things that I've internalized that motivate me is all of the ways that you could do something so meaningful and touching for someone that they actually talk about you at dinner. And Amanda, when you're sick and you get tea, it's not a surprise, right? It's just our DNA of we look for every opportunity to bring that hospitality to the world because we all need more light.
Yeah. And I mean, shout out to, your team you've got some really good people working with you behind the scenes there at BusRight. And the way you truly care about people, it's apparent and obvious. And that's a large reason we wanted you on the show, because you're one of the most genuine and inspiring and trailblazers. That's why you got the award. So we're so grateful for everything you do. But let's talk about that team, because you started with yourself and, got Phil on board, and it's really just grown exponentially since there. How do you build a good team? You find those right people who are there for the right reasons, who bring the skills and that same passion, and keep delivering on this really great product and making people feel that you care, because we know you do. So what's your secret sauce?
I wish I could put it on a silver platter, but I think it's often rooted in your behaviors, how you show up every day, your principles, whether you write them down or not, your values, whether they're on some company wall or not. And one of our operating principles is around, difference being an asset. If you look at Phil and my background, they are completely opposite from each other. And when you see early on in your life the magic when people with such different perspectives, but yet a shared goal and a shared belief around something like our public education system, that's where magic happens. And when you build a company that are people that are just like you, that's where you have very narrow platforms, problem spaces that you solve, and so on. And we serve a pretty diverse customer base, not only geographically, but from Native American reservations in Arizona to, rural communities in Idaho to wealthy suburbs outside of Boston. And the only way to, I think, drive change for a really large group of people across the United States is to have a team that represents the perspectives of those that make up the US.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been our goal, is like the American dream is a giant melting pot, and the school bus does not discriminate on who goes on there and whatnot. You're sitting next to people of, different backgrounds and so on. And that's kind of the BusRight story, and I think the American story.
Yeah, it is. And that's beautiful. You mentioned a term, but elaborate a little more, because when we spoke for the article version of, your award story, you used the term magical hospitality. So explain what that means to you and how you implement it.
What that means is far exceeding someone's expectation, right? And how you implement it is you tell team members when you're going to a conference, for example, or you're talking to a customer or prospect or anyone in the industry or each other. I often say, do something that makes them talk about you at dinner tonight. And I found that to be some of the best training possible, because there are things that are very authentic to how I want to make someone else feel. But not everyone wants to send tea, right? Not everyone wants to send, chicken noodle soup. They might want to show their appreciation for you and their care for you in their own unique way. And that's why we have team members that will fly to a customer if they're sick. That's why I take a little bit of pride in being the only one at our first customer's retirement party. It was the two of us in the transportation office. Because that's how I want to show up and build these relationships and make people feel. So I think part of it is treating people as adults and giving them the autonomy and the authority to make decisions about how they want to treat others, under this guidance of make them talk about you at dinner because you made them feel so good.
Yeah. I mean, you're more than as a customer vendor relationship. You build real relationship. These are friendships. I imagine you have the largest friend group of anyone I know.
I live in New York City. I've been to like one bar, I think, in 3 years. But my favorite number of my favorite contacts are transportation directors and a bus driver. And conference season, which we are entering into now, is where I really bring out my social abilities. But otherwise, this industry is home.
Yeah. Let's dig into the BusRight platform a little bit more. We've learned about your story, but what you're building is a tool that helps districts run their routes better. There are a lot of vendors in this space, but what makes BusRight different?
You could think of BusRight as the command center for a transportation director. It is where they perform their most mission critical work. For example, they build routes in 60 seconds when time is of the essence. They can merge routes with one click when driver schedules change unexpectedly, which Amanda, I'm sure, leverage tablet-based turn-by-turn navigation to easily train new and substitute drivers on unfamiliar routes. We've built navigation specifically for a school bus because school buses can't go down roads that have weight limits or overpasses. They need to work in areas with zero internet connectivity and zero GPS signal. BusRight helps you track the live location of your buses, not only where your vehicles are, but where your students are every moment going to and from school to further promote student safety. You can easily manage busing needs for extracurricular activities and field trips. I'm not going to go through the whole host of features, but the point is that this command center lets a transportation leader run their operation on one pane of glass and giving them the ability to focus on their highest priority and highest leverage work.
Yeah.
So we don't like to call ourselves a routing software or even a technology company, right? We are a tool that delivers outcomes for people in need.
I like that. Now, in this last round of funding, your press release mentioned that it's going to enable you to add more features and continue to build this really powerful platform. Can you give us a peek into what some enhancements might be for your future roadmap?
Sure. One way that, think about routing and BusRight in the future is a transportation leader should be able to build routes, but also have a system make recommendations based on what they're optimizing for. If you're optimizing for the safest routes, it should make recommendations and give feedback in real time on how every decision is impacting their end goal. If you're looking to strictly cut down on costs and or cut down on routes, it should give you recommendations on the quickest path, not necessarily the safest always, though you always want both. So we think about like this Grammarly for student transportation, where it's this, routing assistant, if you will, that lets the transportation leader see what, kind of how they want to bring about their transportation experience against a certain set of agreed upon goals. That's one thing. The second thing is transportation increasingly is not run behind a desk in a transportation department. It is run under a bus, behind a wheel, out in the field, and we are building tools to let transportation leaders effectively speak to the BusRight platform and merge routes and communicate to parents because buses are running late, or check on the bus schedule to make sure that nothing is slipping through the cracks, or to communicate to their team members. So think of kind of like their assistant in their pocket that they get to engage with a platform in a way that is not clacking their keys behind their desk, which is time they increasingly don't have.
Yeah.
And, we increasingly want to build tools that help transportation leaders connect their work to driving educational outcomes. So when you can now see that, this number of students are going to school because they have access to transportation, or if we open up this route to a new special education program we never offered before, what does that do for the community? If the district next door has an amazing math program or theater program, what does it look like if we connected these communities through transportation? And we want the future of student transportation to be one that is, you're sitting right there next to the curriculum director as they're designing the classroom education. You're designing what education is even physically possible.
Yeah. For transportation directors who are overwhelmed or maybe skeptical of new technology, can you offer one quick step that they can take to start improving their operations without adding more stress, time, money, tools, etc.?
Spend more time with your team. The more that you can be that face that is high-fiving your drivers when they come back into the office after their morning runs, or giving out lollipops or donuts on a Friday afternoon when the month is over, or having leaderboards where there's healthy competition amongst drivers or your staff that link to your goals, whether they're safety related goals or what have you. We often think the work is clicking our keys and is writing up documents, etc. But so much of the work is actually just connecting human to human. And that will be increasingly important in this new era. So I would say find whatever is uniquely authentic to how you want to connect with your team and show up to your team and figure out a way to do that more often. And that is, not to get into the world of AI, but like that's part of the promise of AI is that it takes care of a number of these back office mundane tasks, like typing up notes sometimes, for example. And now you can be out in front of your team more. And trust is probably the number one way that you'll be able to drive an agenda or a new initiative or build a culture that you want on your team. And trust is often built by being present and being empathetic and being in the arena with those that are at the front lines of your operation.
Yeah, that's great advice. Very on brand for you. I know you said that you're more than a routing company. You're not a tech company, but what are your hopes for the future of this industry, specifically as it relates to technology and routing?
I would elaborate on a point I made earlier of transportation being more closely connected to educational experiences and outcomes.
Okay.
And we recently posted a case study, a school district in Maine that is able to have 20 more field trips per month because of BusRight now.
Oh, wow.
And these field trips are because they're trying to bring students out into the physical world more and not sitting behind their desks all day long for 8 hours straight. That to me is a perfect example of where this industry is going. How do you use the big yellow bus as a way to usher in a new form of education, which to me is going to be out in the field, shadowing industry leaders in the area, going to a farm for a day and teaching students how to farm a certain crop. And transportation has a really unique ability to usher this in because the infrastructure already exists. They know how to route. They have the vehicles. They have the capacity. They have idle capacity for these vehicles. Drivers want more work. So the more that you can use transportation to connect students to the real life and to other important human connections, I think is really meaningful.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, as one of our trailblazers, as you look to people like you who are aspiring to become leaders in this industry, what advice would you impart to them?
I would ask them, what is your California? And ask other people, what's your California? What I mean by that is my co-founder, Phil, he wants to move to California because his wife's family is there. And he wants his kids to be around her family more. And when we talk about our hopes and our dreams and how we continue to make our work and work life align together for a very long time, it's important to understand what other people are optimizing for, what success means for them, and lean into that. Because your success is largely going to be based on your ability to collaborate with other people. And your ability to collaborate with other people is largely dependent on knowing what actually makes them feel successful. There are some people that will say, I want to make a lot of money. Or they might say, I want to work in a mission-driven organization. Or they might say a whole host of other things. But what's beneath a lot of that is, I want to make a lot of money to fund my kids' education because I never went to school.
Right.
To pay for my parents' housing because they're getting old. To retire so I can spend more time with my family because unfortunately my dad didn't have that ability. There's so many underlying reasons when you peel back the onion of why people actually get up every day and are motivated to do what they do. And if you can get to the core of what drives someone, continue to reinforce how your work together gets them there faster. And then it's almost like in relationships, you talk about love languages.
Yeah.
If you are writing someone cards, but they really like, let's see, like acts of service or something. A card could be that. Bear with me here. You're not speaking their love language. So you could be writing cards every single day, but they don't actually feel like the relationship is advancing or they're feeling that love and that attention.
Yeah.
So in a similar way, when you're collaborating with people, figure out what their language of success is and get to the core of it.
Good advice. Kind of another way of saying, like, what's your why? What drives you? What really matters in your life?
Yeah, and you're often not going to get the answer when you ask the first time or even the second time. And asking that question often doesn't even get you the answer. It's things like, in the last week, what actually gave you energy?
Yeah.
Or this weekend, what's going to put a smile on your face? I was on several calls today. I asked people, let's just introduce ourselves briefly, your name, your role, and what is going to put a smile on your face this weekend. And I can tell you of all the people that responded, I have a much better idea of what their actual why is. And guess what? None of them said making more money or wanting this title or the common answers, being a mission organization, right? So you can get to the core in other ways.
Yeah, that's a good way to reframe it. Yeah. All right. Those are all the questions I have for you today. But do you have any closing thoughts, or what do you want people to walk away from this episode knowing or learning about you?
If you are navigating a severe driver shortage, increasing parent expectations around safety, surging route complexity, we would love to chat and at least hear your ideas or your lived experience to make sure that what we are building will make the life of a transportation leader like you just a little bit easier so you can focus on your highest leverage work. And we believe a rising tide lifts all boats, and this industry needs more attention and investment. So I thank you, Amanda, for spearheading a lot of these efforts and highlighting the role and significance of student transportation leaders. So with that, thank you for having me on today.
Oh, thank you. Well, the people in this industry just can't be beat, and we're just here to tell the stories of people like you who are moving the needle, making a real difference for kids around the country. So floor goes to people like you, not me, but thank you anyway. And Keith, it's always so fun to talk to you, and thank you so much for making some time to be on this episode and sharing your story.
Of course, Amanda. Thank you. I'll see you at a conference soon.
I know we will. Yep. Make sure to check out Keith's story on our website, as well as all of our 17 other trailblazers. We'll link it in the description below so you can find it easy. And if you think you know someone who deserves the spotlight, nominations are already open for the 2027 Trailblazers. Find the link in comments below. And if you want to join Keith and I in Arizona this September, sign up now to attend SBFX. It's our hosted buyer event where we connect people like you with others in the industry to learn together and to find solutions to common problems you might have. It's free for school bus operators, and it all goes down in Scottsdale from September 21st to 23rd. I hope to see you there. In the meantime, find more school bus headlines and hot topics on our website anytime. Be sure to follow our YouTube channel and connect with us on social media. Another big thank you again to our sponsor of the route, IC Bus, proudly offering vehicles and solutions that are ahead of their class. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for riding with us.